nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No, we haven't even declared like well C2. But he's not on there yet because literally he's not on their agenda until tomorrow. So we do have a quorum to vote, right?
Got four.
We can get some business conducted this time. Wanna call the roll?
All right, Wellman. Absent. Billy Joe Jannon.
President.
Cordero present. Rob Romero.
Here.
Steve Biddle.
Here.
Bob Shea.
And Richard is here, although they are still one day away from appointing him. So he's just here to keep us honest. He's not going to vote. Has everyone read the minutes? Again, these are the same minutes we had on the agenda last time.
I do have a correction though.
What?
We're talking about the well driller, not sure, Wellman, not Wellman, the well repairman. And his name isn't Stephen Parker, it's Stephen Parker. Parkers. Yeah, have it in his parks, I think.
Any other corrections? Those were some very long minutes, so it wouldn't surprise me. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to accept the minutes with that exception made.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? Public discussion. Does anyone have anything to talk about that is not on the agenda?
Is that public comment?
Go ahead.
Public comment?
Yeah, public comment. 2 minutes. It's all yours.
Thank you guys for being here. I know what it's like. My name is Red Lawrence, and I come from Boulevard. And you might want to go, what the hell are you doing from Boulevard? We don't care about you. But I got to tell you something. When it comes to water, water travels. It doesn't have any boundaries at Boulevard, Campo, Lake Morena, Pine Valley. It travels. And one of the things on the agenda for tonight is the cemetery, 5,000 plot cemetery. Do you people know what's going on with this cemetery? Who wants to put it in? If you don't, you need to pay attention. This cemetery is being proposed by people of another culture. I don't care about cultures, I care about what happens to our water. These people do not believe in embalming and encasing dead bodies to put in the ground. They whitewash them in a white room, squeeze whatever liquids are out of the body, and then they bury them in the ground to decompose. You know what this decomposition does to the ground? Let me tell you. In the 40s and 50s, there used to be a place up in Tierra del Sol where I live. And that's where all the farmers would bring all their dead animals and bury them. Now, half the wells in Boulevard are tainted with nitrates and pathogens, mainly nitrates, from these dead animals. I can't drink my water. I can't even boil and drink it because boiling doesn't get rid of any of this. They say, oh, go ahead and take a shower, it's good. Your body, your skin is the biggest organ in your body. So if I can't drink it, how in the hell am I supposed to take a shower in it when my whole body is going to suck it up? Do you want this to happen to your wells? Do you all have city water? Do you have provided water from another source that's guaranteed? No, you're all on wells like I am. That's why I'm here. You guys really need to pay attention to what's on this agenda tonight with this cemetery. Now, part 2. When it comes to SDGE, all I'm going to say is this. In my opinion, they can kiss my whatever.
Grits.
And they can put all the undergrounding they want down the middle of Old Highway 80, just like they did in Alpine on the side of the road down there. If they can do it for Alpine, they can do it for us. They don't need to be cutting through people's property or doing eminent domain, which is going to come. They're not going to offer you crap. Like the cell phone companies, they put a tower on your land, you get a free cell phone and $2,600 a month rental. That's because they're real companies. This is a monopoly. They will go to extremes such as eminent domain to get across your property. Say no to them. Let them know you're going to fight them. And number 3 is if you see in the future...
Sir, we got 2 minutes.
2 minutes left.
Your 2 minutes is up. But we have agenda items that deal with some of this, so you'll have another opportunity
Okay,
to speak.
thank you.
So what was your name again? How you spell it?
Rhett, R-E-T-T.
So, gentleman in the back had his hand up first.
Yep. My name's Nick. Campo, Bosta. Not sure that's work, so this is what I'm going to talk about is a request for a agenda item for upcoming meeting. I'd like to discuss 2 things that pertain to SDGE and their operations here in the Campo area. One of those items being the staging yard off of Buckland Springs, Campo area, mostly off of, sorry, brain fart here. Off of Kitchen Creek. So off of Kitchen Creek, directly as you get off the freeway, there's a laydown yard there for your contractors. For me, I left my house at 4:15 this morning. I called to ask to get here for this meeting. And when I go to work at 4 o'clock in the morning, I get home at 8 o'clock in the morning. I see a Kmart Blue Light Special. I moved all the way out here so I can enjoy the peace of this community. I understand protecting your assets. I work for an equipment company, but that same exact thing is the thing you see on 2nd Street in El Cajon. I took pictures of it at the 7-Eleven, at the Walgreens. I, as a resident of this area, find it offensive. Do you think that we have enough crime that you need a security camera system like that? The second of all, that you have a light that goes around with strobe blue, 50 revolutions per minute. It's a nuisance. It's light pollution. You have the lay-down yard where the training is down there. You have other yards. There's no reason for that kind of light pollution. I came out here to get away from that crap. I'm sure not the only one. If you want to get up on Buckman, maybe they'll go down there and they don't see it. But every day, it pisses me off when I get home and I go to work. Because this right here is my happy place and where I want to relax. I want to forget about the city, the trash of El Cajon where I used to live, and that little blue strobe sets me off. And I don't know if you guys can just turn it off. It'd be a simple request. But you got to find a different way to do it other than blue light that just flashes non-stop 24/7. And also, I don't know if it's a future item, using local vendors. I see things in this general area, not just you, but right here in this yard over here for Caltrans, Empire Cat. I work for Hawthorne Cat, San Diego-based business. Empire Cat's nowhere near our area. The vendors near Laydown Yard, United Rentals, they're national accounts. We have the same gear that they have. It supports the local community, puts money in my pocket, feeds my family, and also achieves what you guys try and do and use the gear. My work also provides your company training for your operators, but I never see our gear out here. I see Bobcat, I see everybody else's gear, not Hawthorne's gear. We provide training to your people so they can operate that gear. So I request that some kind of agenda thing, I don't know if we can implement it, maybe it's a new item, but source locally if it's available.
Sir,
Yeah.
your 2 minutes is up, but we do have SDGE on the agenda later, so maybe you can address some of that, I don't know.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay. And you're next.
I'm over here to find out if, I'm Rupert Pedron, I live in Boulevard Act also, and I have a constant battle going on with SDGE because my property is north of their substation. Does everybody know that they built a lithium battery storage plant there without anybody knowing really?
I didn't.
Well, there is. It's almost done. And I got my dander up because during the course of building it, they were sending contaminants into my pasture, into the wetlands, which their sign says wetland sensitive area. So just to let you know, it is there. It's not safe. They didn't take precautions to find out if CAL FIRE had the proper equipment or the ability to fight a lithium battery plant. So that's one thing. The main thing I'm trying to get tonight is Joe Anderson. Did you guys receive the budget report from Joe Anderson? Okay. Could I give you a copy?
Sure.
Yes, Joe Anderson is a fool. I don't care who says not, but he is. He sent out a budget report of the 2023 budget. Let me make sure I do that. There's figures. And this is page 2. And then this is a statement he sent me after he got that. So just, so out of all the communities in this area, Boulevard and Descanso received no funds. Now, as a planning board, our new chairman there, Donna Tisdale was our chairman, and she left. I don't know if you were familiar with her. But anyway, the new board there, giving kudos, they're trying to do like everybody else, but they have no clue what they're fighting. We're fighting a 600-acre solar field trying to come in. The Tule Wind Project is coming in. The Campo Wind Project, which I'll probably bring up later, is supposedly on hold because of the FAA or whatever. But she says, I had a lengthy conversation with her. But on this budget report, am I already done? Can I just put, I would like to know if you guys receive funds, do you apply for funds, and who handles them for you?
We don't do that, and it depends on what kind of funds you're talking about, who submits.
Well,
If it's community block grant fund, then Joel Anderson's office submits it. If it's Parks Department funds, then the Parks program does it. And you are in luck because next month, 4.5 weeks hence, we will have Parks Department here.
okay.
And I have a ton of questions for them, and you can ask them too.
Okay, well, I know it's a minute, but I just want to try to get this out. Boulevard for 10 plus years has not received any kind of funding. And Donna Tisdale did a nonprofit, and that's where the money goes to. She applied for grants and all this kind of stuff, and fought the backcountry fight for the adults and all that. But right now, Joe Anderson's not returning my emails and stuff. He actually forbid me to come to the office, but I went anyway, and I took the Alcoa police car with me. So he couldn't shut me down. So these are issues that I'm going to present to our board meeting next week. And like I came to yours, if you have any feelings or any ideas how to save our backcountry, because Boulevard's getting bombarded. Isn't Campo supposed to get a representative of the solar farm over on La Costa or something?
There is not a proposal on posted that I know of unless it's
Well,
microgrid.
then please check into it because I got email. Me and
Would you
Anderson.
forward it to me, please?
Yeah, I'll have to look everything up, but Anderson is like my arch enemy because he's on record at public meeting coffees that I'm not doing anything for the backcountry. My priorities are Poway, Rancho Bernardo, and Rancho Penn.
We've understood that for a long time.
Okay. So I'm just trying to get information. whatever funds are there, why doesn't Boulevard get any? I don't know how you guys apply for any
You have
help.
to apply for them.
Well, right, I told that, but then when you do apply for them, who gets it? Who's in charge of it? Him? Because he's,
Whoever applies for them.
so if you guys applied for, I'm sorry, guys.
We don't, you know what? You
If
should
you're not-
call me on the phone, because this is
What's
not
your
a
name?
Billy Joe.
Okay, okay.
And all my contact information is on the agenda.
Thank you.
Any other public comments about things not on the agenda? All right. Then I guess we are moving on to Dallin Young of SDGE.
Good evening, everyone. So yeah, thank you so much for having me tonight. My name is Dallin Young, Public Affairs Manager with SDGE. Just want to talk to you about a couple things. First would be there was an unplanned outage here in the area on Circuit 448 that took place on July 17th. And that's what kind of stemmed this discussion with our microgrid here at Campo. So just a little bit of background on that unplanned outage. So that took place on July 17th. And it was an unplanned outage. And so I'll get into a little bit more about unplanned versus planned outages and how they relate to our microgrid here in a second. But the cause of that outage was we've been doing a lot of electric system hardening here recently in the area. That has to do with undergrounding or recovered conductor. Basically large parts of our wildfire mitigation programs here in the area. And so because of all that work, it did cause some unbalance of the load on this circuit. And that evening, there was a trip in the circuit, and that caused the outage that night. We had our folks go out and patrol the physical infrastructure at the time. They didn't find any damage there along the circuit, and so they were able to determine that it was this unbalancing of the load. We did send folks out again just to double check on the infrastructure to make sure that everything was okay, and that's when they were able to finalize their conclusion that it was this unbalancing of the load. So we were able to make the adjustments necessary there so that, we hope that it doesn't occur again. Hopefully it's just a one-time thing. There's still ongoing electrical system hardening taking place in the area. So we're going to be monitoring that to make sure that doesn't happen again. So yeah, that's what took place on July 17th. So before I move on to microgrids, I can answer any questions about that.
Go ahead.
Yeah. What scale is considered microgrid?
Sorry?
What scale is considered a microgrid?
It has to do with their function as well as their size.
Well, I mean, like, what would be something, what would have to be large enough to be considered not a microgrid? 12 acres, 500 acres, like, where does microgrid come?
So it's the size of it. So I think our smallest one is like 800 kV. And then it's also the way that it services the customers as well. So the function of them is for like a backup supply for the community that provides energy to a lot of our essential customers and some of our distribution customers as well.
I understand the concept, but considered asking the footprint. What's considered microgrid footprint?
It varies. It varies.
So you
I'm
can
not
declare an 800 acre microgrid?
800 acres is.
There's some microgrids out here proposed 500 plus acres. Is that a microgrid?
I'm not sure on that. I can get back to you on that.
So there is no top limit on the size that you know of?
Again, it's the function of them as well. So it's not, some of them are actually small, they're just within a substation that might be fed by a solar panel or a solar field somewhere else. And that's not always going to be our infrastructure, that can be somebody else's infrastructure as well. So it's not necessarily the size of it, once again, it's the function of it. And a solar project, for example, is not going to be its own microgrid. That's just an energy generation. So that's not a microgrid. Again, it needs to be tied to somewhere with how it interacts with our customers and our essential customers primarily.
Go ahead.
So I can jump to the microgrids and then I can answer questions on microgrids if y'all want this. There will be some background there. Okay.
Well, I want to ask you a question. So are you familiar with the lithium battery storage unit in Boulevard?
Somewhat.
Okay, well, that's the problem I have with SDGE. Every entity, every person does not know what the other one's doing, so it's a bunch of misinformation. I live right there, half a mile from it. they are sending pollutants, and they didn't do the proper diligence in the runoff that's coming out of the plant. And that lithium battery storage plant is supposed to store energy, and they're saying this Starlight solar project is not, it's still voted on, or it's not a sure thing. But they don't make those storage areas for power that's not going to be. So I think I'm getting a lot of untruths. They reneged on things I wanted them to do to protect my property, because they reconfigured the massive substation. It's 4 times bigger than it was when I moved there. They did the lithium battery plant without notifying any. The only people they notified was anybody 600 feet within that plant. That's not right for the whole community. My gate is 600 feet.
So we have actually presented all that microgrid to the planning group in Boulevard multiple times.
Well,
for the duration of
our planning group is not.
So I mean, the community has been notified. We presented there multiple occasions, and we've been in communication with the county as well.
I'll call you on that in a little bit, but I'm still looking into it. Okay, so.
For the sake of the rest of us,
Yeah.
when you say lithium battery plant, do you mean it's a storage project?
Yeah, so with our microgrids, we have 5 different kinds of batteries that go along typically with these microgrids. So there's lithium-ion manganese, lithium-ion phosphate, 2 different kinds of flow battery, a salt and iron flow battery, it's a vanadium redox flow battery, and then a hydrogen storage system, or hydrogen as well, that actually is a hydrogen energy storage system. So the flow batteries on those are not flammable, and I believe the lithium-ion phosphate is not flammable as well. So the Campo ones here are flow batteries, and so those ones aren't going to be flammable.
Do you have any other flow battery projects?
We do. We have one at Mount Miguel.
Is it operative?
It is, yes. And that's a vanadium redox flow battery, I believe.
So that's not an iron flow battery?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
No worries. I think one of our largest ones we just finished up in Fallbrook is about 40 megawatts. So yeah, it's pretty substantial. And a lot of these microgrid projects that we're developing are to meet the state's goals and our own goals for net zero energy by 2045. So that's why we're going through all this. A lot of it also is from the governor's office and the California Independent Systems Operator that directs us to build these energy storage systems in different communities for resiliency, especially when it comes to our public safety power shutoffs. Those are going to be in the planned outage section as well. So to answer your question, I'll jump to plan reset.
Where do you get the water power generated?
We only have one right now that's in development, I believe, and it's in Borrego Springs, and that's on groundwater.
What is it sourced from a local well? You truck it in, is it wastewater, reclaimed water, groundwater?
Yeah, through the mixed water district.
You know what concentrated something like that is? Are we going to be fighting for resources with SDGE for our well water?
I'm sorry?
Will we be competing with SDGE for our resources such as groundwater to power your hydrogen cell?
For that hydrogen cell, it uses half the annual consumption of a regular household.
Right, nobody thinks your hydrogen.
No, that's towards the average consumption of residential customers. It uses half the average on an annual basis. So, can I get into discuss more about the planned versus unplanned outages? Hopefully that'll ask some
Are you going to take
questions? Yeah, at the end. I will. Yeah. So as I was talking about the unplanned outages, right? There's planned and unplanned outages. What the microgrids are generally going to be used for is for planned outages. Those are typically going to be for public safety power shutoffs and for projects that are upcoming in an area. And they are only going to be able to function for the essential customers that are connected to them, typically through underground systems. So here in Campo, I believe we have a handful of customers that are connected to this microgrid. So during those PSPS events or projects, those are the customers that are going to be serviced. That's generally how we're using them, so we're not necessarily to the point right now that it can pick up a whole system full of distribution customers. So that's on the planned outage side. On the unplanned outage side, that's what took place on July 17th. On those situations, you're not going to necessarily know what is causing that outage in the first place. And so it's not going to be safe for us to flip that microgrid on and start those essential customers until we know what's going on with our infrastructure. So until any of that happens, we have to have somebody go out and physically inspect all of our infrastructure to make sure that no one has ran into a pole, that nothing has flown into any of our lines, nothing has fallen over, so on and so forth. That can take at least 4 hours in a lot of situations, just because we have to have folks, come out here, physically inspect that, and that's the entire circuit. If it's at night, that makes it more difficult because it's going to be harder to see all of the infrastructure everywhere. And we can sometimes use helicopters to speed up the process. If there's winds that prevent our helicopters from getting up in the air at the time, that's also going to increase the duration. So again, we can expect those with helicopter, truck, or on foot. So a lot of that's going to dictate how long we can turn on the microgrid if it is possible, when one of those unplanned outages do take place.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Well, you guys were up here when this all started, and I got the impression, and maybe I'm wrong, but I got the impression that there are going to be two separate circuits when they put it underground. Because we asked why they use the overground circuits, and they said no, they're going to put it underground so you can separate it. So if something happens, you don't have to use the above ground system, the overhead system, you can use the underground system. So I don't know why, you can't turn the power on the Campo corners until something happens. It's supposed to be segregated.
Yeah, I mean, we still have to inspect all the lines because.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is that underground circuit doesn't have anything to do with the above ground circuit. So what does a power pole down have to do with getting power to Campo corners?
Because there is still going to be overhead infrastructure that does feed us, so our transmission lines, it is still connected to our overall grid.
Well, yeah, but they said they were going to separate it so that in emergency, in case something happens, there'd be power right away. They explained to us that it'd be like, well, to me, it'd be like having a generator at your house, electricity goes out. The second you got power again. Campo Corners is out Thursday, 10 minutes in the morning and 10 or 15 minutes in the evening.
Yeah, and we did have a project going on out there last Thursday, and we were able to keep the essential customers energized with the microgrid at that time. That outage at those times in the morning and the evening, we're transitioning the microgrid on and off. It's not as simple as it might seem.
Well, that's why they explained it to us.
Yeah, it's a bit more complicated than that. Plus, there can be issues with our underground systems as well. It's not as common. It's a little bit more difficult, but we still do have to go and physically inspect all of our infrastructure before we can make any of those.
Even though they're separate systems.
Correct.
Well, that wasn't okay.
You mentioned flying a helicopter around looking at the You mentioned flying a helicopter around looking at the lines.
Yes.
You guys use drones
We are starting to use more drones.
and unmarked vehicles.
We would typically use marked vehicles for those, from what I understand.
So what if I told you differently?
We have contractors for some other work as well. This is for those unplanned outages to get people to inspect our infrastructure.
So a lot of people out here have mini acres. I have 47. My wife works from home. I have 33 German Shepherds, and I own a gun store. Somebody decided to drive out my driveway in an unmarked vehicle, start flying a drone. I think that's a smart idea.
You did.
Probably not.
I'm going to work on that.
I can't speak to, I'm not familiar with the project. So in those, for some of
They have
those.
to notify you within like 48 hours before they do that, get your permission
They're supposed
before
to
they
let
fly
you know.
it. Or you can
So
shoot
there
it
are-
down.
For your
Shoot it
safety.
down.
There are a lot of other projects and
Yeah.
contractors that we use for other things. So
So-
what I'm specifically talking about is those unplanned outages when we need to inspect our infrastructure. What takes place in some of the other projects and the preparations and designs on other projects, I can't speak to as part of that project. Does that make sense? They're very separate. And you should be notified in those situations either with well, they would sometimes give you a door hanger, but
Yeah, in a community, I understand.
yeah.
But not when everybody out here owns lots of
Yeah.
acres.
Of course, there's usually emails, text, it depends on what your communication preferences are, I believe, in your account. But I understand where you're coming from, but I think that's a different process, a different project.
So maybe you can take this back to, I'm not worried about my safety. You guys should be worried about your safety.
Fair?
So there was also the drone, and separate, a couple days later, the company that you're using, SDGE, you have that on your shirt, so you can update all the meetings here, right? So the company that you're using to trim around the poles, they did the same thing. No phone call, no text, no email.
That's because they're brand new. They didn't like them.
It's not Davey.
I put a phone number in straight around and then call
So
you.
if you can take that back, that'd be great.
And I'll leave you all my cards as well, and I'll follow up with an email on that too.
Thank you.
Do you want to continue with your presentation while we take audience questions?
That's the gist of it here. I mean, we did cover, I just want to talk about the outage last Thursday, which we covered, so, yeah, got it.
Follow up on Steve's question. I think when we were first presented with the project, it was that if the local electricity went off, then it would be an automatic transfer to that, and these people who are fortunate enough to be connected right in Campo corners would then be able to come on the back of the line and be active again. So it sort of comes down to the automatic switching mechanisms that exist, I guess, at each one of the facilities, each one of the connected parties. And it seems as though, I think Steve has a good point, is that depending upon how these are designed and who controls that switching, when it disconnects from the main source and goes to your subset, your microgrid. If you guys have control of that switch and when it transfers to your microgrid, then you shouldn't have to worry about a power pole being down on Buckland Springs or another fault somewhere else in the system because you're isolated. And fault isolation. So it depends on how those switches are controlled, and I'm assuming you guys have control of them. Probably individual control of each one of those users. And if you do, and when you switch on and you put them on your microgrid, they're isolated from the rest of the system. So you shouldn't have to go out and you shouldn't have to keep them offline until you go and look for other faults. It seems to me like there's a fault somewhere, either in the design or in the instructions of how to utilize the system.
So I believe our process at this point isn't for automatic switching. We do need to have somebody on site to make that conversion, from what I understand. So I can clarify that information when I come back next month and get a little more into the details on that.
Yeah, when it was first presented to us, it was going to be, if the fault occurred somewhere and power went down, those lucky few were going to be able to transfer on and have power right away.
Yeah, and again, this is just for this is for our essential customers that are underground, but that's not to many of our residential or distribution customers at this point. So those folks, if the power does go down in the circuit, they're still going to incur an outage at that time. It's just going to be those folks that are connected through our underground system.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know if they were without power that evening.
They were.
Yeah. So
for 4 hours, they lost a lot of money.
yeah. So there's still at least that 4 hours until we were able to get all of our infrastructure.
And that's how come I don't understand, because like Larry said, it was presented to us that it automatically gets switched over in a power outage, so they don't, when I was working, you could have a cash register with a crank on it, you could operate it. Nowadays, everything's electronic, so, they get closed down completely. And in 10 minutes for them, Thursday happened, 10 minutes in the evening it happened. So that to close the doors again, it cost them a lot of money. And we're small businesses up there, we can't afford something like that. That's what this was supposed to solve, that's what I told them.
This is very disturbing to me that even now, your spokespeople are going around in press releases and news stories, and I just ran into one the other day, by the way, about the Boulevard facility, the microgrid. And SDGE is crowing about what a wonderful asset this is going to be for emergencies. And that was how it was presented to us when you guys came and described this microgrid. And frankly, I have to tell you, I feel kind of deceived.
Sounds like we need to.
I feel like
nail
you're
down the
supposed to
distance.
present it correctly, and you're still not presenting it correctly. If you're not gonna use it for emergency outages, then you need to stop telling people that you're going to do that.
See where the confusion is
Go
there.
ahead.
And I'll chime in on that, you're absolutely correct. And with all the, I've met with over 50 people from SDGE, so-called experts, but everybody has their own specialty. But that lithium battery plant is supposed to be so they never have to shut down the power in the grid. But of course, until you get your lines in and encroach on people's properties and trying to steal easements, and by the way, you know Jennifer Grant? She's here in complaint department. There's a Jennifer Grant, if anybody has any complaints or needs any questions answered about the underground, and if they're allowed to go through your properties, I have a number here for you to call. I am actually dealing with your top security person because SDGE sent them to shut me up. Because I'm a sole ranch where I live 200 acres on the east and 150 acres on the right of me, on the west of me. I have no neighbors, so I'm fighting SDGE by myself. But you guys are not representing the product or what you're doing properly. I have people contact me. I do a lot of Facebook stuff and emails and stuff. I'm getting tons of people saying they're trying to strong arm me to come to my property, and we're going to benefit you by putting our line through. But are you telling them that the energy power thing is going to hook them up for free? No. That's a great subject right now. So I just found out today that the Boulevard Planning Group finally is trying to set up a meeting, a community meeting, to properly explain how this is going to work. Because I have genuine project to the easement on my property with the previous owner sold to them. I have, what do you call it? It's like micro lines communication. Fiber optic lines running through my property. I have SDGE's transformer lines running through my property. All that happened before. Now this Joe Cargo, who I deal with, top security, has actually been my best partner in this thing because he admits to SDGE he's not. I'm not wrong. Sending pollutants into my property, doing a shabby job building that lithium battery, not taking precautions for environmental. They were exempted by the state on an environmental project on that lithium battery. But what they didn't say is their 1 acre of that lithium battery was exempted, not the rest of the valley and not the rest of the people that it's affecting.
I know on that site they've done extensive work to comply with all environmental standards on that site.
No, they have not.
They've done extensive environmental work on that
Say
site.
so. Okay, tell me,
I'm familiar with it.
how is it they have not done their fire mitigation?
They have their fire
No, they have not. I live there, dude.
What have they done about the watershed? The
They-
runoff?
They have
Yeah,
extensive,
there's
yeah, they have
some switch.
extensive work on that as well.
Like what?
I'm not an engineer on it, I can't speak.
Well,
to
I-
it.
Well, they need, you guys,
But I know what
SDG
they-
needs to send somebody who's going to explain this.
They've sent many people onto that site to look into it, to make sure that all the runoff and everything.
SDG needs to send somebody who has a fucking brain to tell us what's going on out there when we ask the
I'm
question.
working on it because
Okay.
I didn't accept the first engineer's comment because they reconfigured the whole landscape of the power for the substation and the lithium battery, and they're trying to pull shit over my head saying, oh no, the natural runoff, it just runs into the thing. Well, yeah, it's still polluting the valley, but they have a containment area around the substation, now around the lithium battery. They have an 80-year-old woman that's the closest lithium battery is 50 foot from her back door. And they're telling me it's safe, but yet they need containment nowadays. They re-asphalt it, they put curbs, they direct all the water from the lithium battery out into Old Highway 80, and all the water from the substation out to Old Highway 80. I asked for another opinion, well, he agrees with me, but he comes out, oh, it's not the lithium battery, it's the substation. I asked for a roll berm, which they told me they were going to do 8 months ago, and then they reneged on it because the so-called expert, well, they're going to do it, believe me. And then all the water that they push onto Old Highway 80 is going to run down to Caltrans, and I want to see the fight between them two. So you guys are misrepresented.
Yeah.
Slow. What are we powering in Boulevard with this substation that we're talking about? What is it actually powering?
I wasn't able to get the exact customers on it, but I'll have it when I come back next month, which customers it does. It's the essential customers, so schools, hospitals, fire department, sheriff department, customers like that.
Well, we have, right now they just added the stores. I'm getting the market hooked up. I had to do it, but you guys did not. And then I did the schools, fire department, the resource center, and that's basically it. Post office. So what good is it doing? And I said, eventually, if you're going through easements and you're going through properties, and you're making it sound like you're doing us a favor, well, it's not. Because you're eventually going to get to where
Can I address this question?
where you want to send the power.
So basically.
So I have a hand up back here that's been very patient, and you can be next.
Thank you.
Okay.
So two things. One, thanks for being the pinata. Your request by subject matter experts we can answer it properly. Two questions. One, it's positive. Thank you for the advance notice on the power outages. It's very helpful. It still sucks, but thank you. But I do want to know, during these planned power outages, what exactly are you guys working on? I just see drill holes and bags, and my power is out all day long. I have no idea why. So can you please tell me why our power's been off plan? And two, this microgrid, is this going to be owned and operated by SDGE, or for lack of a better term, is SDGE should be the pit for somebody else making money?
We own and operate that.
Okay.
And then the outage, I believe, was on the 21st and 24th. We were doing a pole replacement project just west of here, along one of our main lines. So it's finished now, but that's what it was related to, was doing pole replacements. Yeah.
Ben?
Well, I was just gonna ask him about your customers that you're actually providing to, and you're calling those essential customers. I just wanted to thank you for making everybody clear here that if they're not in that line, they're not essential customers. We know where we stand now, that when you got time for us, you'll run your power to us, but when you don't have time and it's harsh, you're on your own, kids. But don't be late on your bill. So that's kind of where you're putting that when you say, these guys over here are essential customers, we're gonna make sure they have power. But then, tough luck when we're going 90 miles an hour and you don't have power. You're not essential for this. But you want my bill on time and you know me $1,000 for my air conditioner. So, there's where you get this rub when you walk. I feel bad for you because this is where the rub comes in. You'll kill my power in November right now, but you want my bill in July right now. So,
Yeah.
using that word essential, these are essential customers, but you're not.
Those are the definitions from the state as well with the customers that we can. So we are regulated by the California Public Utilities Commission, and that's what they have deemed partly as essential customers. And so that's I totally understand where you're coming from. I do. It's not to say that everybody's not essential. It's just those. I don't think the technology is really there for a lot of these microgrids to power an entire circuit on its own. We're getting there, but we have to start somewhere, and that's what we're at right now. We can only power a certain amount of customers with the state of the microgrid that it's in right now. So that's what that's what I'm here to clarify as well, is who's going to be serviced during those times and who we're not able to get to yet.
But you don't know yet who's being serviced.
Because it also has to do with undergrounding as well. If we aren't able to underground from the microgrid to everybody's homes, and we have a wind event, it's not going to do anything, because the wind is what is causing the concern in the first place. Something blowing into the lines, power poles knocking over, trees falling into our infrastructure, so on. So if we even did have the capability to keep all customers energized, until we're able to do the undergrounding on that, we still wouldn't be able to activate it. We wouldn't be able to activate it and keep everybody energized in those situations. So it's kind of two parts in order to do all of that. And the undergrounding is very expensive. And so that's what we're combating here, is where can we do it? It's in the highest fire threat districts. I know Campo area is a high fire threat district, but we're going through kind of the list of our highest, and then working our way down to it. So in the meantime, that's where these microgrids are there to provide some relief in these areas that we have public safety power shutoffs, by keeping those essential customers energized so that people can go and get resources, emergency services, and so on in the meantime.
One quick question.
I have Larry wants to.
Sorry.
When they first came out to talk about the microgrid, they were talking about backup batteries, lithium ion primarily. And some local people also suggested maybe looking into flow batteries, which have a long history and and would seem to work very well with that, and I'm glad to see that you have 2 of them in here. Do you have them actually functioning in any other location, and what can you tell us about them, and how are they working, and so forth?
Yeah, I believe the 2 we have right now are here, which is an iron salt flow battery, and we have the vanadium redox flow battery in Mount McGill. They're both working well. They're all these technologies, minus the lithium ion, manganese, I think that's an older technology. That's what most people are doing. That's a Tesla power pack, so on and so forth. The rest of them, we're still trying to figure out how to get those to scale, especially the flow battery. So the technology has come quite a ways over the last few years, but to get it to the scale that we're really looking for, that's what we're still trying to pilot and figure out everything. So that's currently the phase that we're at, but we're doing well so far.
Do you have a mix of batteries here locally, or is it all one kind?
The microgrids each have a different one depending.
But this grid here in Campo Corners.
This one was the iron salt flow. I don't believe there's any other batteries there. And then even the hydrogen one, we're testing that in Borrego Springs as well. And whichever ones are the most successful, they're all going to be different for different conditions. And so that's what we're kind of that's what we're working on to test out. How they're working on.
So one of the good things about a flow battery is you have these large storage tanks with your electrolyte in them, and supposedly you can have a very long amount of power stored that you then bring through your converter, and you operate off those storage batteries for longer than you can a lithium ion typically. Is that the trend? Is that where you see it going, or how many hours of usage, or how many hours of capability, standby capability, do you think they have?
So typically the way that they're rated, so when we say like 20 megawatt battery, so on, I think it's 4 times that is the duration, right? So you could run at 20 megawatts for 4 hours. So it'd be 80 megawatt hours is I think the conversion on it. So I think the Camera Corners one is 500 kilowatt hours, so that'd be 2 megawatt hours worth of energy. That's typically how they're discussed.
So how many actual hours does that mean for our people around Campo Corners?
I'm not sure the load here, but so that would be the calculation there. So we'll have it's 2 megawatt hours worth. So whatever the load is, you divide that from the megawatt hours, and that would be the duration.
That's just the local.
That doesn't give me a real time. I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
I don't know the load for circuit 448 or for the customers that are served with it. I can have that information next month.
Okay, great. And you say the vanadium battery is working, but we hear that the other one is not. I understand. We're going to talk about that next month. But I would like to know, are the vanadium and the iron salt batteries purchased from the same company?
I don't believe so.
Go ahead.
What was your name again? I'm sorry.
Nick. So they go into a microgrid, are these circuits going to get subdivided to make them manageable sizes, or is it all or not, like nobody on that grid gets it because it's too big to sustain? Or as they increase it, are they going to subdivide the circuits like 448A and 448B as it expands and scales? Or just, like I said, are we all left in the wind, or are they going to turn on parts of it, like subdivide the circuits?
I don't think they'll subdivide the circuits. I think I don't know the full plans over the next decade or so, but again, it's that 2 parts. It's the size of what we can provide with the microgrid in terms of power, and then what is undergrounded as well. So what we've done in I think some other communities where we have been able to add on to the current microgrid is we're undergrounding and we're adding on microgrid at the same time, so we can pick up those customers when needed. I think Borrego Springs is the only community where they're able to do that, but we've had a microgrid there the longest. We have one that's been there for 10 years at this point. So that was the very first one in our territory, so we've been able to experiment with that one a little bit more. But that's where we're seeing some of that.
My follow-up to that was basically like, say you have a microgrid and Trail's on fire. But you subdivide that circuit so the other half is not on fire until it's power. It's like, they just kind of just save your feet, It's like, all right, well, we have this microgrid, but fire's where the microgrid's at, so you also lose, you know what I mean? So, microgrid to me, like, maybe I don't work in the industry, so maybe I don't get it, or ignorance, but it seems like there should be some form of, some form of documented, communicable advantage to, obviously like microgrid 101, I get it, but microgrid 5 is going to power circuit 448, in this area, it's like, then their next phase is going to power this, it's like, where is the redundancy? I hear, these are in place so that we don't have outages. And then I also hear the vagueness of whatever the keyword you use for selected valued customers, whatever the hell it is, what I mean? So you build it in the community, but the community that's built within isn't serviced by the thing that's supposed to sustain it, which I believe, I'm not speaking for everybody, but that's what I'm hearing is the frustration is you've built something with the purpose of sustaining a microgrid, but the people that live adjacent to this don't benefit from it. So is there like a diagram, like, hey, we built it here, the people in this radius actually get to use that?
So that's the point of servicing those essential customers. Is those are hospitals, schools, sheriff's department, fire department. Those are things that need to function during public safety power shutoffs.
So our sheriff has one house, one car. We don't have a hospital. We have the senior health clinic. So the adaptations of a microgrid still like, I don't know if there's a way to define it. I know the essential customers, but we don't have Scripps Mercy. We don't have, Giant Fire Station. For me, thanks for the cool battery, the little backup thing to power my refrigerator, but I can't power my pump. It's 40 amps. My kids want to be home, they want to drink water, they want to flush the toilet, they want to take a shower. Like, I don't care about my lights being on, but I need some water. I can light a candle, whatever, but, when it comes to shit, shower, shave, and, drink, it ain't there. So it's like, I think the frustration is that it's there, but we don't have the direct result of it. We just have the burden. So they make the power, but they send it somewhere else. The wind turbines, they all feed the grid. We have our own solar that back feeds into the grid. Micro cells do whatever the hell they do, feeds into the grid. We're part of the grid too, but you're basically taking a dump in our backyard, but not spraying perfume.
These microgrid technologies, again, our first one was in our territory 10 years ago. And with a lot of the state's goals and our own net zero goals, that's why we're investing so much in these. So in terms of the circuit breakdown, that's just kind of how we manage the circuit. These microgrids can serve two different circuits. We can have two of them in the same circuit. That's just kind of how it functions.
So where do you drill down that information? This is almost a nerd out.
We only have 20 of these so far. So I'm working on limited information right now.
I got green words, but it doesn't show what it does.
Yeah.
It's like.
Yeah, there's a website on there if you want to go look on there for more information.
Then there. Public information isn't all there, but community information, if there are questions. Is there a public information act on this that we can get? I know for me working in the industry I'm in, these projects, I have the whole list of who's in, scope, plans, the people bidding on the jobs, all that stuff. Is there a public information act from SDGE if someone wants to say, this microgrid, what does it do? Is there something where we can request that specifically?
All that information is with the California Public Utilities Commission. That's our regulator. Every single one of these projects has a very lengthy approval process that we have to demonstrate what its use is for, how it's going to be utilized, what it's going to be servicing. So
yes, that's what we want. That information.
That is all public information with the California Public Utilities.
So
it may be public information, but tracking it down is another matter. This happens to be one of my areas of expertise. I've never found any ability to find information on permits and processes CPUC.
Yeah, I'll get exactly.
Just so we're all clear then, maybe you should include that when you send out notices.
How to find that information?
Yeah, where it is. Maybe a link to it. Maybe.
Okay.
That would be cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
QR code?
Are there any other questions from the public?
One more quick, and I'll cut it from my.
Okay.
I want to know what the ultimate goal is, the destination of all this underground. Is it to get down to our project or connect to the cities, or is it just staying up on the mountain and eventually we're going to benefit from it?
All of our undergrounding work is part of it's called, it's a waterfall mitigation plan. So we're starting the high wildfire threat areas. everything that has the highest risk assessment when it comes to fire potential. And that's what we're doing undergrounding and cover conductor first. And then once that's done, we'll move on to the next area. So it's a very lengthy plan, and it documents the risks that we have across all the entire service territory.
But you're still kind of avoiding my question.
That's
What's the ultimate,
ultimate.
what's the ultimate goal, to get down to the main power, send power to the cities? Or is it just this underground staying in our communities?
The ultimate goal is to mitigate as much fire as we possibly can.
So in other words,
I don't think it has anything to do with.
fire.
We already have our transmission lines that take power across our service territory. So I don't know kind of I guess where you're going.
Where does the power from the solar and the wind out here end up?
All over the place. It's all
No,
part
where? It's specifically where? Don't say all over the place, because I know where
it goes onto the grid, which is operated by the California Independent Systems Operator.
Right.
So there's not necessarily a way to track every single electron that is generated to tell you exactly where it goes. Electrons travel to
It
the
goes to
shore.
LA, and you know it goes to LA. We don't benefit from anything.
So that's
The
the
only
point of
benefit
these.
that we're gonna get is that the undergrounding might save some homes from burn. That's it. We don't get power. You got microgrid A and microgrid B, and B doesn't kick in for 4 hours because you gotta come out with a drone or a helicopter. We don't benefit from any of this. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to take this out on you personally,
Understand.
but you are here representing SDGE.
I'll convey the information.
So, my point is,
So can
the
I-
only thing that we benefit from is nothing.
So the point of the battery is that does keep that energy local. Instead of going to LA or wherever else you say it goes, if it's the battery here is local, that energy is staying here locally. So what we're running into in some communities is, especially the adoption of solar, is being very successful. And that's a good thing in a lot of different ways. But during the hours of like 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., in some areas we're seeing an overabundance of that generation. So we can't really do anything with that right now. It just kind of it dissipates through heat and other methods back into the atmosphere. And so if we can contain as much of that energy as we can when we have an excess of that solar power, it's renewable, it's cheap. That's the best thing that we can do. So by building these microgrids and these storage systems in our communities, that is a way to keep that energy here local. So that's one of the main purposes of it.
So is one of the hallmarks of the microgrid concept that it is actually directly grid connected? It's not going into the high power lines to go to town?
Correct, both ways.
Because I thought that was basically one of the hallmarks of the microgrid, was that it was built to be directly grid connected like the solar in my yard, going straight into
Transmission.
You're feeding the microgrid into the transmission lines?
No, I was asking if that's what that was your
No,
question.
right,
Yeah.
right. They don't go into your transmission lines.
It's connected to the transmission lines. It goes both ways. So I'm not sure about this one in particular, but for some of them it does both. It can go into island mode, so we can reduce a lot of costs if during the day when we have the excess renewable energy, we can charge it. In the evening time, we can discharge that back into the transmission line. I don't know about Campo specifically, but
The transmission line or the grid?
well, transmission line is part of the grid. Sorry.
Well, but it doesn't, the transmission line doesn't feed our part of the grid.
Yeah, so it can feed the grid locally or transmission, whichever one, when it is needed. So if we can get the cheap power during the day and we can put it back on the grid in the evening time, it keeps everybody's costs low from a generation standpoint and from an operation standpoint. So some of them
are those so high?
some of them can do that, but when we need to operate them and they're charged during the day, we can island them and then service the communities of where they're needed in the evening times as well. So we have to test them somehow, especially when we don't have PSPS events or projects, and that's one of the ways that we do it. So the charging and discharging of them is one of the ways we test them.
One of the chief selling points of this flurry of letters that our residents are receiving from small solar companies that want to build microgrid type facilities is that they say that they will all be distributed energy. How many of these are you familiar with? And as I understand, we actually have a project going on in Campo, in the Costa area, that I have zero knowledge or notice of at all from the county. Meaning it hasn't applied through the county.
Yeah. I'm not too familiar, especially with the new ones. I'm not sure. I get my main information from the public documents as well. I'm not supposed to know too much about those ones because we do have I'm not supposed to know and be a part of any kind of the transmission and generation discussions. So for those new ones, I'm not too familiar.
Is that just a tribal thing, or
They're-
in NDA with you, or?
So the CPUC, they are working on I think a microgrid, what'd you say? No, it's MIP is the acronym for it, but it's a program through the CPUC where they're trying to give incentives to build microgrids on tribal lands. That's a different one. It's the MIP. I forget the acronym. So I don't know if that's related to what you're talking about, but that just came out I think with the CPUC very recently or will be released very soon. That's something that they are working on. Microgrid incentive program. That's what it is.
You know, I feel like this microgrid concept is getting very loosey-goosey. Is it just a way to get things permitted without going through county processes? Because it doesn't sound to me like, I mean, these little companies come in and say, oh, we're putting this in to feed the grid in your neighborhood. And you will benefit from it directly. And that's also what you told us is that this would be, emergency services, it's going to provide support, it's going to do this, do that. But what you're telling me, it doesn't really do any of those things. It just feeds the grid or the LA or whatever.
So again,
why is this such a slippery concept all of a sudden?
So I am talking about our microgrids in general.
So am I.
Yes, and I'm going to be speaking to the Campo Port of the microgrid more next time. So I'm speaking in generalities with a lot of them because each of them are going to be different. So some of them do tie back into the overall grid and provide that. Some of them don't. So I think that's where some of the confusion might lie because I am trying to speak generally today.
Go ahead, Rob.
Isn't it, if it's a locally solar farm or microgrid, isn't that considered distributed electricity because it's reinforcing the power grid in the San Diego area? We're not importing as much from out of the area. That's what would be distributed power, which
For the solar farm, so I mean those aren't our projects, so I'm not.
well, the microgrids.
I'm not sure that's how they're built. I don't know like the context of that. I mean, we call this, it's a DER, demand energy response. That's what we refer to these microgrids as. So I'm not sure what the distributed energy. I can find out more about that.
And also, I think like the gentleman in back was wondering why every house can't be powered by some solar farms in our area, but to have that much electricity, we lose like 10 times what's going on in Boulevard. You know, does anybody want 10,000 acres dedicated to be able to have every house have solar? I know there are incentives if you've got tax write-offs to buy solar for your house, and your distributor power is still going to be your most reliable on the form of your Roughwood battery backup, and I know other like PG&E's pushing battery backup or paying for some systems up north. And there are incentives for battery backup, but it appears that the logic is to battery backup your house to temporarily get you through the power shut off as a way to avoid being disconnected completely. Of course, they don't always power your 220 volt pumps. You need 2 batteries for that.
I figured out I would need 3 at my house. Three, probably 2,000, 2,500 size forklift batteries. That was my math.
Yeah.
But then I'm a hog. I suck up electricity like I'm rich.
So that's kind of where the new incentives are the batteries. Because again, as we're seeing, there's a lot of extra generation during the day with solar. And so how you transition that energy into the evening time when the solar isn't abundant is kind of the new question that we're trying to
Well,
solve.
they're even pushing it now without the solar, just the battery, and then you can pull off that at your peak time, your peak rates, and then when you're at nighttime, your lower rates are available, it can recharge, so if you don't have solar, but so they're trying to make some type of arrangements for the consumer, so they don't lose power completely.
I have an answer to your question about them giving everybody free energy, because the consultant that's trying to get that Starlight project in, he's very cocky, very condescending. Because maybe we'll give all you people out here in Boulevard free electricity, you're all poor, blah, 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 you all need it. But I found out it's against the law, their policy is not to give that. So he's offering stuff he can't give. And
They
then-
think we're stupid.
Yes, they do. They call us.
They find out differently sooner or later, but
Well-
that's how they show up. They show up knowing it all.
What I'm doing with him, as I said, from now on, any offers you make us, because it says people settle for what you can get, which is so far paint, to paint the resource center, that's privately owned. So it's not doing boulevard, I mean, it painted it and a sink. Okay, so what good is it doing us? I mean, you know, there's so many things that I found out in the last 6 months that, you guys, I'm going to be honest, you guys are liars and you renege on what you promised.
Go ahead, Corey.
So I'm with Ben here, and I feel sorry for you taking the brunt of all this, but it's your job, right? So, as you've heard from everybody here, most people here tonight, water contamination is very big for us out here. And then next is electricity. I don't want to speak for the whole room, but it seems like SDGE has pulled the wool over the eyes of a lot of people here for a long time. I've only been here for a couple years, so I've only seen it for a couple years. I know most of you have been here for a very long time. So, like Joe was just saying, people come out here and think that there's just a bunch of backcountry people. We've got developers, we've got builders, we've got people that work at cable places. Larry's like a nuclear scientist or something. I don't know what he does. He knows everything though. So we need you to come back with some better answers next time. And we need, what can you do to be more transparent? To tell us what actually is going on. So if there's NDAs, got it. Right? Can't do anything about that. But transparency is what people want to hear.
Understood. Yeah. And that's why today I just want to come and talk about the microgrids in general. And then next month I can talk more about the Campo Corners microgrid, provide more specifics about that. So yeah, that's but I want to come out and spend extra time with y'all. So that's what we're doing today and then next month as well. So, but this has been very enlightening. I know I got a lot of questions from everybody, so I appreciate all your input and everything, and I'll try to provide adequate answers next time.
Are you going to be able to answer some of the questions we heard tonight that actually weren't on the agenda? Some like the blue line.
Yeah, we'll connect later and see what we can do about that stuff.
Yeah, but I have one question about this.
What's up?
Go ahead.
So, just use my network. You specifically researched the Starlight Solar Project. That is the one that is dedicated as a $130 million project in our area. That says it is a 100 megawatt solar facility and a 200 megawatt battery. The BESS we talked about right here. It says solar panels 7 to 12 feet tall. Target start date is June 1st, 2024. And it says private ownership. So that would be SDGE as the private owner.
No, Mr. Hagan. 1,000 acres.
The UC, all right.
Yeah,
So is this Starlight Solar, the BESS you're referring to here?
No, completely separate. Yeah, so I can't speak to that. It's a completely private project.
Then will I be turned off or on?
I'm not going to write that down.
Good.
Well, thank you for your time. We look forward to seeing you next month and hearing all about the interoperability issues with the new batteries.
Understood.
Good.
Yeah.
couple of voting items, you guys. We have a vacancy. We already talked about it last month. Does anybody have any more comments about that, or do I have a motion?
Well, if I got a comment, I really hate to see Bob go. He was-
Well, weirdly, they frowned on me going over there and snatching him up and dragging him
I
to
know,
the meeting.
I know, I know.
They just
He's-
will not put up with that from me.
He's done a lot
He has.
for the community, and it really makes me sad that I have to make a motion to drop him off, because he missed so many meetings. But I know he's not in good shape, and I've got a friend that lives across the street, and he said he's not too good, you know.
He is not. He has a hard time getting around. He has a hard time driving. In fact, I don't think he drives at all anymore. And you know what? Everybody should just drop in and visit him now and then.
And the thing of it is, we're right around the corner, a lot of us here, you know? That's the sad part. Time moves fast. So enjoy it while you have it.
Yeah.
But I make a motion to drop it.
I second.
All in favor? All opposed? No abstentions? And we have another voting item that I carried forward from last month. The climate change letter. And everybody's looking, what are you talking about? You do remember that we were going to send this, right?
Yeah, we're going to send the letter, correct?
Yeah.
And you got all the, yeah, I've got it correct.
And Larry, you wanted to see more about
Ground source.
geothermal
Yeah.
than what I had written. And I wasn't clear on what more you thought should be said about it.
I'll call you about it.
Or maybe knock off a little bit of language that you would suggest for that?
All right.
What elements of it would you want covered?
Just the fact that ground source heat pump is a viable option in certain locations. And it's also, I think, has some funding available through the recent federal legislation that came through. I don't remember the name of it, but there's some funding that can go into ground source heat pump. There's almost no companies doing it in the San Diego area. There's some in LA, but you can do most of it yourself. So, but it costs more upfront. But it's still, it would be nice for it to be allowed and to be legal to do, and just go through the tell them what you want to do, show them the equipment, do the calculations, and have it approved, instead of saying, well, I don't know what this is, you can't do it.
Okay. Well, all right, I guess I'll hear from you tomorrow then.
Yeah, I'll call you.
Any objections to adding some language to geothermal part?
I think it should be part of it.
Well, it is part of it.
Yeah.
I just am not as knowledgeable about it as Larry and can't just knock off language like I can
But Larry, years ago,
sequestration and whatnot.
40, 50 years ago, they're developing the zero, the energy down there in Imperial. Did they quit, or nobody hears anything about it anymore, do you know? Or did they run into problems?
Yeah, what you're talking about down in Imperial Valley,
Yeah,
that was geothermal. That's a different, almost the same, but it's different. You're drilling wells into already very hot
right.
volcanic steam and bedrock and so forth. And you're putting water down there, you're extracting heat, bringing it up to and running it through a turbine,
Right.
and generating electricity. So that's one form of it. This other form is where you've got around your house and 6 or 7 feet underground is pretty constant temperature. And your heat exchanger that sits outside of your house right now handles air. It passes air back and through cool air, warm air, whatever, to transfer the heat or extract the heat from, to exchange it between the air outside. All this does is now runs, instead of operating with air, it runs water down into some pipes in the ground and extracts heat from the earth and brings it back into the system. Or it takes heat from the house and runs it back in and sinks it into the ground. So it's transferring heat into or out of the earth, which is a much more efficient operation to do it there than it is to do it with air. So,
Oh, okay. Yeah, I misunderstood that.
I know we can beat this to death, but is there a permitting process for this in the county?
I'm sure there would be some special permitting because you're now running lines underneath the ground and so forth. And another way of doing it is to drill deep wells, which is much more expensive and potentially dangerous to the groundwater and so forth. So they've got to protect it. They've got to be very careful. That's more costly. And usually when you don't have much space, but if you've got a lot of space, then you can just run lines underground, 6 or 7 feet underground for 2,000 or 3,000 feet. And that's enough for an average size house.
Are those lines metal or plastic?
Plastic.
Like PEX or bigger?
Yeah. Yeah. And what's really important is the weld joints. A lot of times they have these butt weld joints or a sleeve that goes on because you put it in there, you don't want it to be leaking because it's like an antifreeze solution you're running through.
Any other comments, questions on the letter?
I make a motion that we accept the letter and what we need to add to
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? All right, I'll send you guys all a copy when I get it ready to send. And our next item is the cemetery. But this is just an update. We're not going to vote on anything today in connection with that. But I just wanted to give people sort of a rundown on the scoping letter that the county produced, which actually requested a lot of what we requested. So I felt like that letter did us some good. Time-wise, going forward, it will be at least the end of 2024 and possibly early in 2025 before we actually have another public comment period. And that will be on the environmental documents, whatever's tendered in the way of environmental documents. So we'll be doing more comments. That doesn't mean that we might not be moved to comments before then. But, you know, that's if something comes up. Does anybody have any questions about the scoping letter or comments about it? Areas where you felt it should have been better or that it was great or what?
Can I get a copy?
Now, you guys were all screaming and yelling at me 3 months ago. Now everybody's all quiet.
Can I get a copy of that scoping letter?
I can email it to you. Put yourself on my email list here. You'll get everything.
Does your group understand what Joel Anderson's stance on that is? He publicly announced an opportunity.
On what?
On the cemetery.
As far as I know, he is unaware that it is.
No, he was aware. We made it aware to him.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
And what
He
did he
said
say?
you people were on your own on that.
He said that?
He actually said that.
Because he doesn't know anything about permitting cemeteries
He doesn't know
any
too
more
much
than
about
the.
the backcountry period.
Say
Except
again?
he doesn't know too much about the backcountry past Alpine, because that's where he lives. And during his little speeches, he mentions 30 times in 2 hours, I'm from Alpine, I take care of Alpine, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, what about the rest of the communities? He said, I said, Campo, Boulevard, Campo, Macumba? Where's Macumba? His stance was, you're on your own with that. I've been to 3 of his public coffee meetings. He's condescending, says that he's not worried about these guys.
I would very similar about his whole water. You know, it's good.
I've been around quite a while. I remember the backcountry against the dump fight, and what it took to beat that. And what's going to happen, in my opinion, is it's going to take a year or so to get results. When we start seeing results, is when we're going to have to probably come up with money. Okay, you're going to have to hire other professionals to get your opinion across, and you're going to have to hire attorneys. That's what we did with the dump. We had barbecues. Somebody started backcountry against the dump, supposedly a nonprofit organization.
That was Don Tisdale.
Don Tisdale, right? And I was involved with that for years. So I think that's where we're headed. We don't have a lot to say now because we don't have results. But when the results start coming in, is when the battle's going to start. So that's what I've been trying to share with these people here. You're wondering what you can do to stop this. One of the things you might want to do, might want to think about, is figure out a way to start raising money, because it's going to come down to money.
So on your point about raising money, I'm doing a lot of research. There's grants and there's fund. Donna got money from somewhere, not just fundraising. Okay. So anyway, so we as a group, all Campo, Boulevard, Macumba, we all have to start applying for those grants. Even if they're going to be managed by somebody else, except the supervisor board, because they're rating Macumba's funds, which nobody knows who's taking care of, to give the resource center $15,000 for his fire insurance. And then they rated the Campo fund according to Joe Anderson. And they're rating the excess slush fund for COVID. He has to get rid of that money. So there's monies to be.
One of the ways Donna got money is she had deep pockets in her family. She borrowed money, she loaned money, and luckily lawsuits were won, and they got some of their money back. That's how they did it. They stuck their neck out. And we're going to probably all have to stick our neck out at some point.
One thing I was not completely comfortable with in the scoping letter myself was that they couldn't really come up with testing other than current quality of the groundwater, which will probably show that our groundwater is good quality. But it does not analyze what's going to happen with the effluent from the grades. And by the way, you were short by 20,000 in your estimate of that. Or was it you that brought that up? You said 5,000 graves?
Yes.
Well, the documents say 25,000, or rather their website says 25,000. So it's a lot more than
So it's even worse.
it's way worse.
And if they want it, if you want experts to test groundwater, they can test it right along
But
with 80.
testing it now, and
No, what I'm
I'm sort of wondering, I'm so sure it'll show that we have good groundwater.
Yeah, here.
But it isn't going to show what will happen down the line, because no one is testing actual cemeteries in use to see what is under there. We need to know, I think, what's under a cemetery. Once we know what's under a
I
cemetery,
think that's true. Most cemeteries downtown and they're on, everybody's on public water, so nobody's worried about the water.
No, they're on wells. Cemeteries are on wells. They all have a well.
They're all
Well
old.
water.
They have wells.
Okay.
It's too expensive to have public water. They're on wells.
go
cemetery project, public commission filed the plan, didn't say anything about testing water or anything like that. It talked about when they strip the earth, and reclaim the like brush and stuff, and mulch it and turn it into the earth for erosion purposes. But there's nothing there about water quality or any kind of testing or percolation or anything like that. It's all had to do with the preparation of the soil for erosion. It didn't say anything about the actual effects of it or any kind of testing for that.
And this was where?
I'll find the report, I think it was the Dodge report, basically when these things come up for bid or auction, basically when they have a project public, it goes into a thing where people, in my industry, where you do construction work or you do rental equipment, it gives you the scope of the project. There's a name, so it's like, Campo 17. Let's say where the proposed site is, click the link, it'll give you the specs of the job, and then it's based upon what's on the paper. So the specs are in there, it's public data, what's in there. How big the site is, what the scope of it is, and what the preparation plans are. Nothing in there already. Only watershed based upon land erosion.
So are you saying that it's already up for bid?
Yeah.
So the good part about this is that it's a private entity trying to do it, not a San Diego Gas Electric or some big
Right.
corporation. So the fight would be a little,
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a little corporation.
I wouldn't say little, but dealing with the bigger corporations like the
It's
window.
a slightly more even playing field.
Yeah, maybe.
Because, it was just east of us, so
Richard?
Well, one thing that has been determined in this area, we're sitting on fractured bedrock. When they did a hydraulic test for the dump in Campo, they pressurized wells, and they found out that they're all connected for miles. So that's one thing that's already been established in this area, and it's also, we also have the sole source aquifer designation. So that's two feathers in our cap to start.
Any other comments or questions?
Since you guys, all three of you weren't here the last couple, I don't even know, go to our meetings because you don't live here, but what Richard was saying also, I wasn't here, but they put dye up in Julian, right? Can you explain that?
Years ago, well, I didn't explain it, somebody else had that story. Somebody had put, in the past, somebody put dye in wells in Julian and it showed up here.
In like no time at all.
I know.
Yeah, it's within days.
Yeah.
Right.
So the water moves fast and it moves in large enough volumes to accomplish that in a short time.
We went to the Pine Valley sponsor group meeting. They didn't seem concerned that their water is connected to ours. They're going to be in for a surprise.
Well, Boulevard and Pine Valley are both aware of this project, so they have the option of making whatever comments.
And then bulldozer. Thanks to Ben. Go ahead, Ben.
I actually have a question for the board. There was a lot of questions the last time this thing came up, and both the developer and the owner said they would get back to us with answers on those questions. Has there been any response from the owners or the developer on those questions that they promised to answer?
No, did you gentlemen wish to speak to any of the questions that have been asked?
We are not aware of the questions.
I'm sorry?
We are not aware of the questions raised.
I can't hear you.
We are not aware of the questions that were asked in the last meeting.
So there's been no response at all like what was spoken that evening, that we would get a
No,
response?
it's been very quiet. It's been very quiet. I reached out to the planner to get some sense of process going forward after the scoping letter came out. But that's it. That's all my information.
Can I give the information about the reporter who in South Carolina did the report on whitewashing bodies and what they do? Can I give her name to anybody who wants to know?
I'm sorry, whitewashing?
Yes, that's what it's called. It's known as whitewashing a body before they bury it in the ground.
Well, that's just washing the body, right?
It's called whitewashing by her.
We have a lady over here who,
I've never even heard of that whitewashing.
she
I
works.
never heard that.
Let me give you this girl's name. Her name is Tasnim, Tasnim, Shamma, S-H-A-M-M-A. And she is a reporter for National Public Radio. She did a report on this in South Carolina. And it can be found on the internet real quickly and easily by just typing her name in and inquiring about burying bodies.
Yeah, I work in a mortuary, so I know all about that, whatever that lady's saying.
They don't use mortuaries.
Okay,
Okay?
okay, buddy.
What's your last name? Shanna?
Shaman, S-H-A-M-M-A, Shaman. Tasman. This is not something I made up. It's just something I'm.
No, but you have to by law. There's laws in California. You have to. It has to be in California. There's laws for that.
Okay,
When
I
you
believe.
set a laws on Washington,
I believe
work at a
you.
mortuary, so, yeah.
I believe you. Just telling you what I read.
Okay.
I have another question about the scope. I'm sure you read it all the way through the scope.
Yeah, I can barely hear you.
I'll speak up. I got a big voice. When you read that scope, there are several things that caught my eye, but one of the things that caught my eye was that the project must be in harmony, was the verbiage, with adjacent neighbors. How would you describe that? I mean, in your opinion, when you read that, what would you think that would mean?
Well, I know what we meant when we wrote that into the community plan. Harmony in bulk and scale with surrounding development.
Curious about that.
That's what we meant by that when we wrote that language in it. And I was actually present for that. Larry was involved in writing that plan. I was involved in it. You were involved in it. Yeah, we were done by the time you got on board. So we do have some institutional memory on what went into that plan and why it went in.
Now, just because I don't know, what's that plan? I mean, is that something that they go back to like a constitution type situation? Or what does that was obviously written here, this plan you're talking about?
So the community plans were intended to fill in the details, if you will. We have the general plan, which governs everything. And then we have the Mountain Empire plan, which is a set of rules that more or less applies to everything from Descanso out to Acamba, down to Dulzura and, places like that. The Mountain Empire plan. And then these specific community plans in each of the planning areas. And so that plan is filling in the things that we want people to pay attention to. The things that no planner would think of because they don't live here and they don't know our community. We know our community. So we spent, thousands of hours, and 10 years to actually get our community plan. It was a struggle.
When you guys approve that and that goes to the county board, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how that all works.
Well, we wrote it and approved it. And then it went to the board of supervisors and they approved it and made it a part of the general plan for us. So it's blessed, it has some authority. It doesn't have the teeth of the general plan. And you do have to kind of flog the county planners a bit to get them to pay attention to it. Cliff experienced this, but Cliff had a deed condition for the church that required this tremendous amount of, they wanted to widen Oak Drive? They wanted to widen Oak Drive to 4 lanes and have this gigantic intersection improvement and those huge street lights that they put downtown or they put around grocery store parking lots. They're big. And it was just so out of line for us. And that's where we used the community plan. The planning group wrote a letter saying, you know, you guys, we get that this needs to be done, and we hope it gets done. But what you're asking for is way, way out of line in terms of what we want for our community and what our community plan said. So both can scale. Both can scale. Whatever happened with that, Cliff?
Nothing.
Walked away from it.
Nothing is.
The worst one, they wanted a 2-story parking garage.
Yeah. So, you know, you gotta understand that the people downtown don't actually understand us very well. And that's where those community plans come in, because they need something that says what they're supposed to do. So our community plan gives them that. Dang it. And you know, they quoted our community plan a lot in that scoping letter, which made me happy.
So what's really cool, Ben, when I first joined the group here, I randomly found it through, I think it's on the, I'll get it over to you, but it's like 60 or 80 pages long, something like that.
Yeah.
It took a lot of paper to print it. But there's all kinds of cool stuff in there that most of us would never think about, that they thought about. Like you can't, we don't want people building on top of a ridge line. So it's ugly, right? There's all kinds of stuff you guys put in there that I never would have thought of.
And yet it makes well, because we are a tourism community, that's how we make a lot of our money, our local businesses and museums and everything. And so it's important to keep that scenic value, you know, because that's what people come here for, is that scenic value.
So does that apply to all the companies up here, Boulevard, or just the Campo?
Do they have their own boulevard?
Yes,
Yeah, every community has their own.
yeah.
No, yeah, the community, that paper you wrote out, that applies to your, how you guys want the towns run and all that. Does that apply to all East County, all along the Empire District?
Not our plan. Our plan,
So yours is just for Campo?
it's only for our planning area, and Boulevards is only for Boulevards planning area.
As far as I know.
Although I will say that we compared notes with other communities. You know, and I feel like people adopted parts of ours. Ours was very good.
62 pages.
So anyway, it is your tool and your weapon to use. Any other comments? Anyone? Questions? Nothing? We're done. We're done with the cemetery then, I guess. And on to reports. Anybody got any exciting news?
Just what I mentioned earlier, there's a push now to not go just solar, but solar and battery. So, and the reason is when the power is shut off, they've got that battery backup, or you pull from it at peak time, so you're not using SDGE power, and then recharge those later in the evening. But that's kind of what the systems are now. It's not just solar, it's solar and battery.
They also want us to sign up to let the state use our batteries at night. So I spend $8,000, $9,000 on Portland batteries, and I pay an engineer to hook me all up and make it all work right. And then SDGE is supposed to be able to drain my batteries while I sleep, I guess.
Well, they do the same thing with solar. They don't buy your, they don't.
They undervalue it greatly.
Yeah, sure.
They do. So if I spent $10,000 putting together a battery system, I would just disconnect from the grid.
That's what you have to do.
It's my dream, my fantasy.
But you say you have solar, correct? I do too. I have 40 panels.
I do.
And that's what, if you don't mind sharing, I'll share what I produced. I produced $1,500 worth of credit, and then they said, I still owe you $350. I said, you're sucking my energy I'm producing all day long, and then you're selling it back to me in the evening for outrageous prices.
3 or 4 times as much as they pay you.
I said, that's something we need to change. Let's just have my bill's still going to be that much.
I say that the
That's where
voters
you go
need
back.
to rise up
Well,
and
you're
say,
right.
the voters need to rise up and overrule the legislature. That's the only way.
Problem is,
Go ahead.
No, I mean, I'm sorry, retroactive, I was trying to find it on their own STCWRS org website. It says, Great Assessment of October 24. So far, they have dug a well 1,000 feet deep that makes 15 gallons a minute per water. And they're in the process of hiring a field director, caretaker, 2 machine operators for opening and closing graves. And they're trying to procure a hydraulic excavator and a earth leveling machine, says.
They'll need all those things to have a cemetery.
I'm saying it's on their webpage, they're actively pursuing this timeline.
They are.
It's moving forward.
But they will not be able to do any of that until the environmental documents are submitted and commented on and accepted.
Major use permit was submitted March of 23, and we're going to obtain it supposedly September of 24, so it's still a process. So this is your period of time that both are going to do it.
Can I ask the gentleman a question even though they say they don't want to answer?
I'm sorry?
Can I ask those gentlemen a question even though they don't want to answer? They said they're not here to answer questions.
Well, they're not obligated to answer,
No.
but go ahead.
Excuse me, sir. So are you representing the cemetery budget? Is that what you're here for at this meeting? To get information on what's going on?
We're just getting a feel for the discussion that is happening on the cemetery.
So you are here to find out what's going on?
Any other comments on that stuff before we let Rob finish his report?
Go ahead, Rob. Also, they're suggesting, they've got this net 3 system metering that they're doing now, so in the old days, putting in 40 panels, that might have helped a little bit, but nowadays with the net 3, it doesn't make any sense to overproduce because you're not getting a return on it.
Well, they've changed, they raised your tier level to compensate.
Frankly, it only makes sense to get a complete system with storage and go off the grid.
Yeah.
But you can't. They condemn your house.
I guess if I just turned off the switch that feeds the grid and quit paying my bill, they'd probably
If you had a
cancel.
mortgage, you would be in trouble.
Well, we're getting rid of that as fast as we can.
All required about don't have a throw switch, not allowed.
Yeah, you can't. They made it to where they can condemn your house.
You know, I have a friend who has a perfectly permitted house that is completely off the
I
grid.
do too, but he's over there by Sequan, and he's closer to town than we are. But there's no power lines near him, and his house has always been off the grid.
But he is able to operate on the grid, and I remember Joe actually, getting refinance loans and things on it. So that didn't stop him. He was off the grid completely, and
These are new laws.
well,
Lobbyists.
They still have to pay a transmission fee.
Right. Yeah, bingo.
We think of a way
Yes,
out,
you do.
they think of a way back in.
the transmission fee is based on what you use from the grid and electricity. So if you're not using anything from the grid, then you have nothing but whatever the flat rate fee is.
I think $32.
But you don't have that little column along the side, the right-hand side of the bill, where they list all the transmission and distribution and blah, 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 with the taxes. Okay? That's all based on a percentage of your usage. So if you're not showing any usage because you flip the switch and you aren't using from the grid, then you have anything.
You still have a minimum, I think it's like $32 is the lowest it can be.
Not yet. It's,
I just went through it with the guy 2 weeks ago. Big 2 or 3 hours.
so that's under NEM3.
Yes,
I don't have NEM3.
that's why I meant.
I want NEM1. I made it by a month. I made it under the deadline by a month. And I'm really glad I did. I feel sorry for people who invest all that money and barely get anything in return. I'm also one of those crackpots that refuse to smart meter. They want to charge me for time of use. It has to be, they have to make up a number. And I always call mine. What are my cheap joys in life?
So while you're on the subject, how does everybody feel about getting transferred to the new SCPA?
I'm sorry, what?
How's everybody
PPC.
looking? Yeah, the new, they transferred everybody automatically, and I opted out of the new electric company.
I opted out of it because they bought power that destroyed an entire town. And I'm just, you know, I mean, I'm just trading one villain for another villain.
And that's what I told them.
So I said no. I said no. I'm sorry we keep interrupting.
That's it.
You got anything to say?
Yeah, I got a few things. I want to touch on, since Bob is here, I've got a safety concern too. So I'll touch on Bob since he's not here. The economic report is that I kind of touched on it today with San Diego screwing around with power and the stores had to close because I'm sure they were told, I talked to a couple of people at the store, and they were told too that they would switch over in emergencies. Well, they lost power a month ago, like the guy said. They're gone, they were shut down for 4 hours, and a lot of disruption, you know, a lot of loss of money. People want to buy stuff, couldn't buy stuff because of disruption. Then Thursday, they're disrupted in the morning, what he said. And so they close things down, and they open things back up, and because they don't know what's going on. And I talked to a few people around there, and they're pretty disgusted, but, you know, hopefully we'll find out something next month, see what he has to say as far as switching over, because like Larry said too, it was supposed to be automatic, you know, if the power goes out, they had 2 separate circuits, that's how come they put the underground in so this wouldn't happen, so they wouldn't have to worry about the overhead lines. And the second thing I have is I'm a little disturbed. I don't know quite what to do. I wasn't involved in an accident, but I was going up Bucket Street on the road to town, and you know how it is on the straight stretch there. You're going up, and all of a sudden the traffic stops. I said, "What's going on?" Well, EDCO, they don't have a place to pull over. They're stopped right in the middle of the road. They're emptying trash. And there was almost an accident, but I could see somebody taking their eyes off the road for a second and running right into the trash truck because they don't get off the road at all. They stay right on the road with their lights flashing, dump the trash and move up, and then dump some more trash. And like I say, it's I don't know what to do because, you know, if you go around them, you have to get in the other lane, and there's a lot of traffic coming.
And you can't see around them.
And you
because
can't
don't
see
even know
around
there's
them.
a car coming.
Yeah, you can't see around them, so you have to stop there. And, you know, somebody might hit you from the back end, not paying attention. So I just think it's a rather safety hazard. I'd love to see them put shoulders at one spring, but that will never happen. But I don't know if signs would do any good or what would do some good, because I know there's going to be an accident there because of them picking up trash, you know.
Have you tried to contact EDCO?
Ah.
Have you tried to contact EDCO?
No, well, that's the only place they can pick up the trash because they set their trash bins right there on the road.
I had an issue with that company and it took them a month to respond to me, my complaint. And they're not very considerate.
No, I know, I've dealt
At all.
with another thing, but
And they
I just
don't-
wanted to bring up that concern, you know, I don't know if anybody else has had that concern or not, but especially around in the afternoon on a Thursday when they're picking up the trash, that's the worst.
They can't read signs that are in English.
What's that?
They can't read signs that are in English,
No.
especially out here because we have handmade signs or different kinds of signs, like slow down, extreme dust. They don't know what that means.
That's all I got.
Alrighty then. I'm not sure what we can do about it either. You're right, it would require shoulders on the road, or it would require that the trucks pull into people's
In
driveways.
the people driving.
Then they would have to back
out.
out,
We can
so.
do a turnaround on all the driveways.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure how that could be done safely.
But
I think what you can do as a planning group is write a letter and say it's a problem and see how they react to it.
Oh, we have written them letters like you did.
We tried that.
And we still don't have a bin site.
But for Bob, I will call him, like you said, I'll call him and see
Okay.
what answer I get. Probably won't get one, but one nail.
That's a good person.
The other thing you can do is call highway patrol and have them deem it a unsafe.
Well, that's true, that's true.
Well, and you know what? It'll probably raise the price of trash again.
Well, it's better than 79.
And we're getting, I have the smallest dumpster they have and the recycle barrel, and they charge me $180 a month for that.
And we're all the same boat.
Say it again? Oh,
I'm just being an ass, sorry.
I am having trouble seeing you, so,
Yeah.
you know, you have to kind of wave your arm out where I
No
can see.
problem. So I know the procedures or whatever. I know that I respect the gentleman in the back, they don't want to speak. Is there a way to, I don't know how the group works, but can the group request somebody from their organization to come and speak at the next meeting for education purposes? Because, I mean, no offense to my ignorance here, I'm just on the internet here, and I'm going to pronounce it wrong. It talks about donate to bury your Muslim brothers and sisters with dignity, giving a as a Sharia compliant burial. I don't know what the hell that is, so I Googled it, right? And so I have two questions about that. You know, I got young kids at home, and, you know, the world's a different place than it has been, where it's all about inclusion and everything else like that. So I don't know if the Campo planning group has anything in place that allows exclusionary establishments to operate within the community. You know, if it's only allowing a certain creed to be buried in a burial ground, is that permissible, or is that because of religious reasons? And to piggyback on the gentleman who left, is water. When I look,
That would be a county
okay,
thing.
but it's in our neighborhood. You know, and looking at kids about inclusion and everything else, you know, we're allowing somebody to build that's exclusionary. You know, I was reading how it was done, because I don't know what it was by ignorance, so I'm just using Google, maybe it's wrong. But to piggyback what he said, maybe the whitewash, I don't know how that means, but it's talking about how these long faces all have coffins or burial caskets. Instead, they bury the body, placing stones or wood at the bottom of the grave, cut the body in contact with the soil. They generally lay their loved ones with the right side facing. So, you know, I'm open to all kinds of things. The world's a big place. But, you know, concerns with that are in place. I know, like, we do certain things. There's mitigation processes for all kinds of runoff and seepage. So I don't know if there's essentially equivalent of a vapor barrier with a collecting pool at the bottom that would take whatever the decomposed matter, fluid, solid, that. So you can make compounds where it can still be that way. It wouldn't affect the groundwater. And it would still work that way.
All miners leave.
Yeah. So based upon their religious reasons and the way it offers the type of burial offered here to honor their culture, it does reinforce the gentleman's thing about not having to be contained in some way, which I respect. But he is right about not being castrated. That's, you know, culture appropriate, whatever. It's fine. But there is concern about the well water. My thing is exclusion. You know, if I live in Campo, I want to get married in Campo. I can't get married.
Well, the question is, they're proposing a controversial project that doesn't serve this community.
It's in the community master plan as well.
Just so that you know, these men were, I think they just sat in the back mainly, but they had some other people speaking.
Okay.
We do have a record of that video somewhere that we can get to, so
Yeah, no.
they did have the developer and some of the leaders and everything already go through that, you just missed that video.
Yeah, I saw the notes in there. That's what piqued my interest. So, okay.
Yeah, we can, if you wanna come over after, I can
Yeah.
see if I can find a video.
No, absolutely, it's great. I mean, I want to be well versed in stuff. I mean, just let every find out. So,
And if you want to get a hold of the developer, he's on the Humboldt Zora planning group.
okay. Perfect. I did see they have a cap here. That's a little bit more easy.
Anything else? Any other comments?
The rest of my report is, that vent is killing me. The rest of my report is on the APG. Not to be confused with Alpine Planning Group. This is actually the group that the chairman have agitated for and received that will allow us to choose a representative for SANDAG, which is a huge, huge yay, because SANDAG has been making rules and proposing taxes and proposing land use changes to us when we're actually the primary sequester authorities in this county. And we got tired of this treatment of this kind, so we will have a SANDAG representative for the unincorporated area after the 1st of 2024.
That's a good thing.
And that's my progress report. We're approving our bylaws, I believe, this Wednesday night. And then we will go on from there. Choose officers. And I really, really hated that one of the terms is that you have to go meet in person. And I don't want to do it. I want to appoint someone from the group to do it. Just so we know. I really want somebody else to do it. Somebody maybe who's interested in politics.
Yes, I'm going.
That's my report. That's all I have to say. Is there any questions about the correspondence? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, on PLDO funds, Leaf has a couple projects we're considering that would qualify for PLDO funds. And I was wondering if, what is the process, request, funding, and how much funding is available?
I am having the PLDO presentation next month.
Okay.
You will be able to ask that woman anything you want to know. I am very confused by the PLDO program.
So,
And it's probably one of the funding sources that these gentlemen have mentioned. But there's a very picky and particular set of rules that go with that. And she would be, I'm sorry?
When are the requests due?
I don't know. But you know what? If you email me and remind me, I can put you in touch with her directly.
Okay,
And you can talk to her.
All right, I'll do that.
It's 9 o'clock.
Well then. Any requests for agenda items?
Until after I talk to Victor.
Okay. All right. Well, you know, it's easy to reach out.
Yeah.
Tell me what you want. Public safety? Well, we also have another member coming on, and now that we've declared seat 7 vacant, then okay, let's talk about it. Oh yeah, you know what? You probably would be perfect for public safety. Shall I just appoint you? I'm appointing Corey to be in charge of the public safety committee.
Well, let me save tonight.
Well, I'm going to say tonight is Corey Northern John.
Ben, be safe.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn. I second.
All in favor? Any opposed? It is. It is. That's my contact information on it.
Thank you.
This meeting is adjourned.